I think one of the questions that got answered on the fast is that I have completely cleared the Lyme disease, but I'm still strongly affected by the after effects. It has done something to my cells and my immune system. And after 27 years of just continually getting flus and colds and just going, and they just go on and on in this half, I can still work in a way. I limit the amount of sessions that I do, so that I've got the energy to do them, so I can happily do them. But living in this half world where I'm ill nearly all of the time and I have not a lot of energy or not my full energy, and that I would catch illnesses and they go on my chest and they would just take forever to clear and then would end up in some autoimmune disease. And I think with finding dry fasting and realizing something that may go on for a month or 6 weeks, I can just dry fast and my body will clear that disease. And normally it would do it in 3 or 4 days. So I thought I was throwing up, which isn't good because you're losing a lot of fluid. It was baking hot and I live in a van, so that's not good either because I'm dehydrating. But I thought I'll just go on a dry fast until this is gone. I'm just like, stuff it. You know, my body is going to learn to get better, and that is it. Either I die, my body dies, or this pattern is over. You know, I die or my body, I know my body can do it. I know somewhere in my body it knows exactly, not just a little bit, it knows exactly how to get better. It knows exactly how to heal itself. And there's something in the way of that. And I think the dry fasting gave me the tools to do that. I could just stop eating and drinking and it will get better. But after 4 days, I mean, it went down drastic. It wasn't like I was ill anymore, but I could feel it was still there underneath after 4 days. So I thought, well, I've got to keep going. So 5 days, still there. 6 days, it went onto my chest. And I thought, oh God, I'm really weak. It's now gone onto my chest. That's my weak point. This is just going to keep going. I thought, I don't care. I'm going to carry on. You know it's not a good way of doing it, but I just come to that point. This pattern ends here. That's kind of it. And I was amazed because normally my chest is the weak point, and it just, asthma as a child, pneumonia, emotional upset, always my lungs would go first, my heart would. And I thought, oh, here we go, this will just run now because I'm so weak from not eating. But it was quite amazing. Rather than taking 2 weeks to go through, the chest infection went through in half a day, very intensely. And it took me right back into my childhood, really differentiated between the 2 lungs. I think one lung was really strongly affected by the pneumonia, and I think it was pleurisy as well in the left lung, and it really showed the difference between my lungs, how it played into the spine. And even though it was a virus, it just played out like an energy because it just went strong into those areas and just was releasing. As soon as I felt it, that it was releasing from the lungs into the brain energetically with the Kundalini, I knew it was over, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to clear this. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had jurisdiction over that disease rather than it having jurisdiction over me, as it just kept releasing, and I could see the karma of it, and I could see it energetically relating into the spine and through my brain, very much like how we're working here. You know, with what we work with these different organs, I relate it into the spine, the different vertebrae, how it goes through the brain, how it connects the higher self, because I don't care if it's a disease, if it's a physical manifestation, whatever. There's a pattern there, there's an energetic system there, there's an energy, emotion, patterns, past life structure holding it in place, and you find the key to that structure. And the physical disease doesn't matter. We are more powerful than the physical diseases. It's finding the key. It's letting the karma resolve. It's letting the energy open up through these. It feels like, you know, there's broken doorways where the energies don't know their way through, but they find their way through once it's in the spine, then it goes through the brain. Then as soon as it connects to the higher self, as soon as you've got a clear passage, then it's as if that disease didn't even exist. But on another level, it is like an entity. It's like the higher self just comes in and clears it like an entity. And then the disease breaks up. And anyway, that cleared. I really, you know, I'd done a 5-day fast before. And I was only expecting to do a 4-day fast because I had to get ready for the free webinar. So by this stage, I'd cancelled the free webinar. But it cleared the lungs, but it was still there a bit, and it was still in my stomach a bit, and it was still in my head. And I was just belligerent. This goes. This goes fully. Gone. Dead. Disease. No more sitting around for 2 months with an illness. So I'm going to go. I will just drop dead. You know, you're going to have to get, I know you can do this, body. I know you know how to do it. This pattern ends. So I just stayed in the fast. And it wasn't easy because it was so hot. And I guess for that reason, it was kind of dangerous because I had no idea how much I had kind of sweated or evaporated fluids. But there was this, after 27 years of never being able, you know, just being out of effect of it, and I just hate that powerlessness of my immune system not being able to properly protect me. It's like, okay, I'll just die. If I can't be protected, I'll just die. But you don't. You just keep going, and nice to yourself. You do everything possible. But it was like over. It is over. I just kept going. By, I guess, 7.5 days, it was cleared. That's a long time for somebody who hasn't done it a lot and worked with it a lot. That is a long time to dry fast. And I knew I had to go longer just to make sure it's completely cleared. Where they go to in Russia, they do 9 days, so I thought I'd do that. But lots of things kicked into place, and I finished it after 8.5 days. And then since then, I've just been very consciously starting to refeed and have the right vitamins, the right minerals. You know, I have worked a way of doing that for myself. So that is what I went through, but there was some fundamental things about holographic breathing. Again, I never really understand why holographic breathing isn't more popular. Maybe just because I don't have the energy to hold it if it was much more possible. You know, it's just lovely, to be honest, having such a lovely group of students who understand it, and I get by anyway. But there's a thing in dry fasting that people find difficult. When you go into a dry fast, you stop going to the toilet. If you haven't gone to the toilet within the first 12 hours, that is it. That will stay there till the end of the fast, and then the digestion is sluggish, and it's another 2 or 3 days before the new food going through starts clearing the food that had been there before. And that normally, I think there's a build-up of about 3 days. At least my digestion's very slow, so it's like 3 days worth of food in my digestion, I think. And what happened on the fast before that one, come the 4th day, we were working with the rectum, and I started working with the rectum, the breathing motion of the rectum, and I had to rush to the loo, and it completely evacuated my bowels. Now, I had pre-feeded before, I just had juices before, so there wasn't supposedly much there, but I did a decent size number 2. And I thought after that, well, I'll try that in the next fast, because if with holographic breathing you can go to the toilet in dry fasts, that revolutionizes dry fasting, because most people don't even bother. They just eat what they're going to eat. That goes into the digestion, it goes down to the bottom of the digestion, and it sits there, and the body just drains out every bit of fluid that it can. And you end up, when that comes out, with the most horrendous, I mean, you can imagine 3 days food that's had all the moisture drawn out of it, you end up with the most horrendous constipation. That's a real problem. So people do all sorts of things, like just having juices or just having watermelon beforehand, but it's still a problem. So on this one, now I didn't pre-feed at all, you know, I was just eating whatever I was eating a lot, because I didn't even know I was going to do a fast. And I hadn't thought about the going to the loo bit. And I have been doing holographic breathing, but not with the hands and feet. And on the 4th day, I just for about an hour, I was working with the hands and feet, because I really wanted to get the diaphragm going. And because I wasn't working directly with the rectum, I thought, well, this won't do the same as the last one. And I worked with it for about an hour. And then I went off for a walk, and I had to come back from the walk because I really wanted to go to the loo. And boy, I mean, the first little bit was a bit constipated, but basically it came out like a train. It was like 3 days of food had got to the bottom of the digestion. It was sitting there, and it was going to come out what may, and it just came out like a train. I should have taken a picture of it. It was the biggest poo I've ever done. But it completely, everything, nothing left, emptied my bowel. And that is deeply significant for dry fasting, because if you can do that, it just stops that fermenting or just sitting there and poisoning you or whatever it's doing. Because that's twice in a row, and I wasn't even working with the rectum. It's just this movement of the hands and feet really activates the diaphragm, activates the liver, gets the whole digestion working, so that you can go to the toilet on a dry fast. And what I think happens when people go on a dry fast, I think the body goes into starvation mode and says, right, there's no water, there's no food, we're not going to go to the toilet. Whatever's in there, we're going to draw the water out, and we're going to draw out every bit of nutrition, so that's not leaving us, which is useful if you're starving, not useful if you're on a fast. So with holographic breathing, it's significant that you can do that when you're fasting, but it's also significant for health. I mean, dry fasting is the oldest, probably the oldest remedy there is. And if that has never been talked about, probably holographic breathing is the only thing that does that. And if it does that on a dry fast, it will do that with our normal health. It will get the digestion working. I think the body goes into that starvation mode and it all stops. But on a dry fast, it's much better to keep it all breathing, keep it all moving, evacuate all of that. And then everything's much more comfortable. And as soon as that had come out, I just thought, I can go longer. I don't have to think about this huge, great bit of constipation at the end. And it just feels really comfortable and empty and cleared. It just feels lovely. And, you know, we're working with this every time now. And I think it's just highly significant that we can get not just the digestion, but the organs breathing in this deeper way with holographic breathing. And there's the more subtle motion and energy when we're working with the mouth, and then the more physical and active motions when we're working with the hands and feet. And this can slowly build into something that becomes a medicine and will become understood at some point. Another significant thing that I found around holographic breathing on the fast, and gave me encouragement to carry on teaching and talking in the way that I do, was that it becomes very difficult to sleep on a dry fast because you start producing a lot of cortisol and it just keeps you awake at night. So what I started doing to put myself to sleep, again, I don't know why the whole world isn't using this. If you want to go to sleep and you can't, just listen to one of my lectures. or do one of my meditations. You will spend a lot of that time actually asleep. And I chose that gallbladder meditation because I've become so ill. I wanted to find out if it was majorly the illness or whether I was just getting a big elimination from the gallbladder. And because it was in the night and I was mainly wanting to sleep, and because there was all of the, you do go into a lot of discomfort in a dry fast. It's hard to stay conscious. I slept for most of it. So I was actually asleep through most of the meditation. So for the question that I get asked so often, because people say, well, it feels like I'm awake and it feels like it's working anyway. Well, yes, it is working whether you're asleep or not. Whatever is coming through as a transmission is working on people, whether they're doing it consciously or whether they pass out. Because the same thing happened as the first day. I just a splitting headache, wanting to vomit, that it just brought whatever the karma was of the gallbladder back to the surface. And I've been awake for the first bit of it, but for most of it, not so. So it kind of validated what we're doing here with the organs, and also people feeling disempowered if they sleep through a lot of it. I think it's just grist for the meal. People will just go in and out of consciousness and not to fight against it. Sometimes you'll stay awake the whole time. Other times you'll go in and out of consciousness. But it works good for that. There were a couple of other things, like just with holographic breathing, there's this bubbling. People just have this dry mouth in dry fasting that's very uncomfortable, and that's what stops people, is their mouth is like a sandpit. And with holographic breathing, it's just continually creating this bubbling well of fluid. So you know, just working with that, and then you're drinking, and you're just circling the fluid again. Very beneficial just in normal life, because you get the toxicity leaving through the tongue. The tongue is like a pair of kidneys. It's eliminating. The skin is like kidneys. They're eliminating. So you're getting toxins and viruses coming out of the tongue. And if you can circle the fluid in a dry fast or in normal life, you're continually clearing the toxicity off the tongue and around the mouth. The nitric oxide kills the bacteria or illnesses, and when you drink that back down, that is like a natural vaccine. So that is another way in dry fasting and in normal life for your health, that you can cycle that fluid in the mouth. You can use that as a miniature picture of illnesses that go down into your body. Now, we are working with the blue circuit in this webinar, and a lot the kidneys. For some reason, the main organs that seem to be coming to the surface in that are the kidneys. And again, in a dry fast, these are pretty primary. You know, pretty well everybody says, no, you've got to drink water, you'll die, you'll kill your kidneys. Now, I don't know why people think dry fasting is going to kill their kidneys, but everybody thinks that for some reason. From all of the medical research, which there isn't a lot, one of the things they consistently come up with is that dry fasting heals the kidneys or improves renal function. Now, I don't know if that is so if you've got a bad illness of the kidneys, I think you've got to go in slowly and in your own way. But the kidneys start acting in a new way in a dry fast. They start, rather than using glucose as the whole body is using glucose, they start gluconeogenesis, something like that. They start producing, the liver and the kidneys start producing glucose, which brings them to life in a whole new way. They start functioning in a whole new way, and I think this gives them a new health. So I kind of, as you know, I have to say what's going down with me to run these webinars, and that's kind of what's gone down with me. I'm kind of happy at the end of it that I definitely don't think I've got Lyme disease. I think it is just the after effect, because all of the people who go into it with Lyme disease, who go and do the night, they have a massive improvement. And normally they don't heal it 100% and it starts coming back again. You've got to do actually longer than 9 days to clear Lyme disease. And it starts coming back again. But I didn't have that massive improvement and then slow decline. I just had completely cleared the illness. I think it cleared just a shed load of underlying bacterial infections, viral infections that just the immune system had got used to. You know, it works. It kills, you know, the body is going to die. It needs water. It will go after every virus. It will go after every bacteria and kill it for the water. You know, your body does know how to kill viruses and bacteria. You put your body in the situation where it's going to die, unless it does do that, it will kill viruses and bacteria. And that is one thing I really want, you know, after this extended illness, I want to, when I come to the end of my life, I want to be out of that pattern. I want that my immune system stops being half working, that it, whatever that pattern is, whatever that sluggish is, you know, I will work with this until that is done. But I think it is just the after effects of the Lyme disease, and I think it's affected the cells. And again, when you dehydrate in Lyme disease, in dry fasting, it takes all of the moisture out the cells, which comes into the circulation, and it takes all of the pathogens that become resident in the cells where the immune system can't get it out, where the immune system can get to them. It takes all of this old fluid that could be in there for a long, long time and could become toxins held in the cells. It takes it all out of the cells, and it can circle the body and then be eliminated. And then you have to really drink good water for a good 3 weeks as your cells reabsorb. You want just lovely water because you want to fill your cells with really good quality water so it can give you a good health. But I think, you know, for me, holographic breathing is going to be partnering dry fasting. I think dry fasting is the oldest healing remedy. I think it's what's been used right back to the beginnings of time. It fits perfectly with holographic breathing. There's all sorts of parts of holographic breathing that integrate together with it. So, you know, I will carry on with that. Sorry I talked so long, but it obviously is part of my karma at the minute and plays into what we're doing today.